All right, welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Scott Britton from the Competitive Edge podcast, and today I'm going to be your guest host. We are so lucky to have Aubrey Marcus on the show, the CEO and founder of Onnit, which is one of the fastest growing health and fitness optimization companies, helping people reach their peak performance. Aubrey, thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
My pleasure. Glad to be on.
So for those people that aren't necessarily familiar with Onnit, could you give us a quick 90-second description of the company, what you guys do?
Well, yeah, we really took the theme of total human optimization and figured out ways to provide people with the tools to achieve that. So supplementation, because there's an amazing array of nutrients that have a really wide variety of benefits all around the world that you just wouldn't even want to try to get through your diet. But a lot of amazing earth-grown nutrients that can affect performance, like cognition for our flagship Alpha Brain. So supplements are one category. Then functional foods, getting the best protein, healthy fats like coconut oil, Himalayan salt, some basic staple foods that are really going to help your performance. That was the second aspect. And then the third aspect was, different types of unconventional fitness equipment, kettlebells, ropes, steel clubs, maces, bags, these things that work with the body, the kind of human monkey, the way it's designed to work, and the techniques as well as the implements to help you do that. And we really learned a lot of that from some of the best athletes that we've been working with in a variety of sports, from Olympic skiers to MMA champions to football players, hockey players. A lot of these athletes are adapting these unconventional methods, and we really wanted to be the leader in that space.
It's amazing, man. Steel clubs, I imagine happy hours at your office can get a little crazy.
Yeah, it gets a little frisky in there sometimes.
All right, man. So, it sounds like you guys are providing optimization products across a slew of verticals, but I know you started with one product, and that was in supplements. And the supplement market, as maybe I'm wrong, but how I perceived it was that incredibly saturated, a ton of competitions. What was going through your head when you were looking at this market and you were deciding whether or not you could compete in it?
Well, I identified a need. I realized that for a cognitive supplement, a cognitive enhancer, I was having to take a whole handful of a variety of supplements. And I learned this paradigm from my stepmother, who founded a nutritional supplement company a long time ago. But, for just cognition, there was so many different ingredients that I was having to reach for, and just the sheer time and maybe my own laziness in doing it, I wouldn't even do it half the time. I'd pick one, or I'd just do none because I'd say, screw it. It's going to take me 5 minutes to get all the bottles out, dump out all the pills, take all the pills. So I realized that there was a need to really combine things around specific themes to make things really simple. So Alpha Brain was the first of those on the suggestion of my partner Joe Rogan. And, really looking at all of these different supplements that you could take for the brain and combining them in a really intelligent way that was highly effective but still balanced.
So at the time, there wasn't any other products out there that were doing the job for you, that were just one pill with everything you needed.
I mean, there's the individual ingredients out there, right? But nothing that had combined it in a way that was even close to as effective as I would prefer from making the combinations myself.
Got it, man. And was Alpha Brain your first experiment with creating a supplement product?
Yeah, we had a couple other formulas that we were targeting towards hangovers and things like that, and that was kind of me learning the ropes as far as the production element of it. That certainly wasn't the right vertical for us to be chasing. Alpha Brain kind of refocused the company.
Awesome. And I've heard it before, but maybe people haven't. Talk a little bit about the origin story of Alpha Brain and how you came up with this idea and first brought it to market.
Well, yeah, basically I was hanging out with Joe Rogan and I said, Joe, what is the, supplement that you would prefer taking, that you would really like to take? And he said, I'd really like a nootropic. And I was like, all right, great. Because I was already, as I mentioned, working with my own combinations for that. And so I said, I'll get to work. So basically took a lot of the stuff that I was familiar with and had a lot of experience taking, took a lot of the, advice advice from a doctor that I saw in New York, Dr. Eric Braverman, who put me through a bunch of tests, and I learned a lot from him. And then of course, went to my stepmother, and then we started expanding that kind of medical team, and basically came up with a working idea of what we thought a formula could be. Got a sample of that, and we sent it out, and right off the bat, it wasn't the final formula, but we knew we had some magic there because we could feel that spark. Our brains light up and go, "Oh, whoa, this is different." And a couple other things too that happened randomly. We'd call each other the next day and be like, "Were your dreams really out of control? Did you have some crazy dreams?" Yeah, I did. So we found that we weren't even targeting it, but acetylcholine, which is the main neurotransmitter that we're targeting with Alpha Brain, also regulates the REM dream state. So there's some really interesting effects and things that we've had. And we probably went through about 6 or 7 revisions in that formula until we finally had a working formula. And then I poured every last cent of my in the company into producing that first lot of pills. And we sold out of our 20,000 Alpha Brain pills within the first 36 hours of going live from the Rogan podcast. And fortunately, I had another order, coming right on the heels of that, and we've just grown, exponentially since then.
That's absolutely amazing, man. So I'd love to kind of codify the strategy that you took, where it seems like you found somebody who had an audience and who was influential and had a great relationship with their audience. Ask them exactly what they wanted within the context of what you thought there was a need in the market, and then really kind of had this person help you create the product. Do you think that this is a strategy that people can replicate across different industries, across different verticals?
No doubt, but I think choosing the person is really important, because you have to have somebody who has great trust built up with their audience in the topic that's specific to what you're doing, because we work with a lot of big time professional athletes, and truth of the matter is they're not that helpful for us in our business, our own audience. It could be a big NFL football player, a big hockey player. They have a lot of fans that'll listen to them, but they listen to them, about hockey or about football, and they don't really trust them innately about any of these other topics. So when choosing that key person, I think it's important that they have a really, lively relationship with their customers. And I think podcasts are a great example of that. The people who listen to podcast shows really feel like they know that person, and they can weed out when they're full of shit and when they're not, and they're constantly able to reach that audience. So if you're doing something like that, find someone that has a really close relationship with their audience, not necessarily the biggest name in the world, but someone who has an audience that really trusts them.
Makes total sense, man. So I think a lot of people right now are listening to this and thinking, wow, this is an awesome idea. There's so many different people out there that I could talk to and maybe get to help me bring my product to market, but they might not necessarily know how to engage this person and get them interested in whatever idea that they had. What I'd love to hear is, did you have a pre-existing relationship with Joe? And if someone didn't have an existing relationship with somebody like him who had a great audience where it was also fit for their product, what advice you give that person to help engage that person and ultimately get them to support you?
Well, people like doing business with people they enjoy and they like. That's number one. So, before I was friends with Joe prior to bringing this deal with him, but it was a ship that I, intentionally sought. It wasn't like an accident, like I just ran into him accidentally. I set up an opportunity for us to meet to talk about a different business deal, and it was a valid business deal, and we ended up doing business with that. But at that point, we had a chance to meet, and it was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting, and ended up being a 4-hour meeting where we talked about supervolcanoes and aliens and psychedelics, and really had a kinship on that level. And we just had a friendship for several years before, and there was a slight business, component to it. Just a pretty much standard podcast advertising deal for a different company I was working with. But the friendship came first, and then after that, I think the next step is you got to really know your shit. So you get a relationship, and then prove that you really know what you're doing. And if you get those two things together, I think it's really easy to take the next step and develop something with that person's support. So relationship and really know your shit.
Yeah, did Joe try the Alpha Brain product before marketing it to his audience?
I tried it. I was the number one. I was the first person. He was the second person to try it. So
I love it, man. That's great. So you have the success with Joe and his podcast and a ton of orders coming in. You sell the first order. What happens next?
Well, we were in like 600 square feet at that point, and we went from 5 orders a day to 200 orders a day, like overnight. So that was a scramble. And to be honest, the scramble has, to a certain degree, continued even up to now, where growth has been pushing our company. We've just scaling, trying to keep up with it, adding fuel to the fire, new products, new ideas, taking the same kind of model of combining ingredients together around a theme, and then providing the good clinical testing and everything else we can to support that. But yeah, it's been a mad run. I mean, that first time we were still hand doing shifts. We didn't have all that automated because we didn't have the need for it. We had to just bring in all the resources we could. And fortunately, I'd worked in e-commerce for a long time, so I had all of those resources readily available, and we just kind of put out the horn of plenty and sounded it and brought all the people to the team, and have just slowly gathered allies since.
Tell me a little bit about how you guys have used podcasts to grow, because I mean, I've seen a ton of different ways supplement companies have tried to market to people like me that are interested in improving my health and fitness, but you guys are really the first people that have hit me up on a podcast, and it seems like it's worked pretty well for you.
Yeah, podcasting has been by far our most successful strategy. And I think it really the truth element of it. I mean, people have really highly tuned bullshit detectors now. And when you're in front of your audience for 3 hours, having a conversation, it's really hard to keep on. And so I think people grow to trust the individual on that podcast. And what we do is we don't tell people, occasionally they'll have some loose, idea of which product we want them to talk about. But for the most part, we just send them a box of stuff and say, hey, what do you like? Talk about what you like, because we have faith that in our array of products in our lineup, they're going to find something that they like. And sometimes it's a total surprise. Like we sent Adam Carolla a box of stuff, and he ended up liking our jump rope. And our jump rope is like number 60 out of 63 on the most important products on its lineup. We're like, fuck it, I guess, if he wants to talk about a jump rope and he's going to be really honest and passionate about that because he loved it, he's an old boxer, let's let him talk about the jump rope. And that's what he did, and that was a successful campaign for us. So really just playing to the honesty of the situation, I think, has been really key. And podcasting is the best venue for that. I mean, banner ads and, placements in TV or commercials and all that, everything just kind of sounds a little false. It rings a little bit false to the consumer. Whereas podcasts are really allow for that authenticity to shine through, and that's really what's kind of given us the wind in our sails.
Totally, man. I mean, I absolutely agree that there's something special about building a relationship with somebody and then hearing them genuinely recommend a product. I know that a lot of people that listen to Growth Hacker TV, as well as my podcast, Competitive Edge, they're incredibly metrics-driven individuals where if they invest in a channel, they want to measure how that's performing. And I'm curious, like, as a business owner who's and a lot of times relying upon the verbal connection of somebody talking about your product to the purchase on your website, how are you able to measure those conversions and the effectiveness of the podcast channel?
Yeah, there's 2 ways. One way you use a coupon code. So use code Rogan at checkout, and save 10% or whatever that is. Or you send them to a unique landing page, on it. Ellis is what we use for Jason Ellis. And there's some leakage both ways that, are going to kind of fudge the numbers a little bit. Because obviously with any coupon code, it's going to end up on coupon code sites. So people are going to use that. So there's going to be a little fudge room there. And then for any kind of landing page, like onit.com/Ellis, for example, There's going to be people who just drop the end of that come to on it as well. So in either scenario, there's going to be some room for error, but it'll give you an idea as to how effective it is. And especially with, online sales like that, you can really get pretty accurate numbers.
Yeah, man, that makes a lot of sense. And, I think that one of the things that's cool is that you can account for growth, but there's going to be people that hear your product for the seventh time, right? And like, God, I got to try this stuff. Kind of like myself, who's really excited to go out and try Alpha Brain. I've heard about you on Lewis Howes. I've heard about you on Joe Rogan's show. And then, at some point I was like, all right, I got to pull the trigger and find out for myself. And you're probably not going to be able to measure that, but you're hitting me so many times that it's just effective, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's just wearing down the resistance, and finally, it's funny. I mean, there'll be people who've probably been listening to Joe for, I've heard 80 On It commercials, and finally one on that one day where they feel mentally sluggish or they really want to get in the gym, and they'll be like, all right, screw it, I'm in, and we get those converting every we've been hit many, many times, and I think that's important.
Yeah, totally, man. So one of the things that I really like about you guys is your branding and how you've positioned yourself. And, when I go to a lot of supplement sites, I feel like there's like some sleazebag who doesn't even know what's in the ingredients that he's selling people and is just really trying to take advantage of me. And I think you guys have done an incredibly well job branding yourself in an industry that doesn't necessarily have, just the trust of a lot of people out there buying products. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys have branded yourself and, why you think that's so important for startups that are listening to this?
Yeah, I'm out giving a talk now, and the talk is called "Truth is the New Marketing," and really for me, I think one of the big driving forces behind our success is our complete transparency. We're not perfect; we make mistakes, we screw up, but from top down, we genuinely believe in the products. We take all our products. We're making every decision for the best interest of our customer, and when we screw up, we just say we screwed up. And I think we've built an amazing amount of trust with our consumer because of both our advertising, our product integrity, and how we handle things internally. It becomes more than just a product we're trying to sell. It becomes kind of a movement and a group. It has this cohesion to it that's pretty special. And so I think just kind of keeping that guide star of what's the most authentic and honest way to present the information has really been beneficial. And I don't think that's what's in the top priority list for a lot of other companies. I think a lot of other companies, it's, how can we sell this product at all? Even from our money back guarantee, we don't even make people send back their product if they don't like it to get their money back. If you buy any 30 count of our pills and you don't like them, you can just tell us. You can send us a text, an email, whatever. Call us on the phone. We're like, great. What's your account number? We'll refund your money completely. He does that, because there's part of a game involved. And the game is you buy something, you don't like it, then you got to send it back to get your money back. Well, nobody sends stuff back, really. Very few people do. And so you end up getting a bad taste in your mouth, and you don't really like that company anymore because it's a game. They realize that most people aren't going to send it back, so they're kind of it's not necessarily dishonest, but it's a game that they're taking advantage of people with. Same with those money back rebates. Like they know that 45% of the people aren't going to rebate, so they're only actually giving $50 off. So we just don't do that shit. We're straight up from top to bottom. And I think that's really a breath of fresh air for a lot of consumers.
Totally, man. I just had an experience at 24 Hour Fitness, not to call anybody out, with like 3-day guest pass. Come on in. And I came in, I was like all excited to get my workout because I'm kind of like nomadic at the moment. And they were like, oh yeah, you actually have to like show me like a rental slip. They said that nowhere in the thing that I signed up for online where they gave me their email address. Like, yeah, well, if you're just visiting the city, like we don't want to give you a free workout. And I'll never go to a 24-hour fitness again for my gym
Yep.
because of that. I mean, they lost me for life because of that lack of transparency. And I just think it's so short-sighted, and I really love the approach that you guys are taking for not only creating one-time purchase customers, but these are people that are going to buy your stuff for life, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the idea. It's not worrying about these kind of short-term tricks to squeeze a little bit of money or squeeze a little bit of margin out. It's, how do you treat people right? And if you do that, you're going to get customers that are going to stick with you, through thick and thin.
Totally, man. So I know that you guys probably have some loyal, passionate fans, and it's so amazing, especially when you have a product that people can really feel on a daily basis, enhancing their life. Has there been any cool ways that you've been able to kind of like create community or galvanize these people to grow your brand?
Yeah, I think, we put in a really cool loyalty program, which is some combination of Foursquare and, other things where people get badges for what they purchase, and then they get points. And the points are obviously redeemable. But we've also went to create like custom embroidered patches for certain levels that they can put on their gym bag or their gi or things like that. So, it goes all the way up to the Legend patch, which is a very exclusive club, and they get to do like Skype calls with me where I'll answer their questions and stuff like that. So really trying to, build that community, and we're going to continue to do that. Our has always been strong, and we put as much stuff out there for free as possible as far as information and things like that. And I think that, that's always appreciated as well. I'd like for people to be able to come to Onnit and not buy anything and still have a positive experience, learn techniques, tools, tips, things that they can use in their life to benefit them, even if they never give us a penny. It's about more than the money. It's about really just helping people get the most out of what they're trying to do here on this beautiful blue rock we got a chance to call home.
Yeah, baby. Let's talk about kind of the future right now. I mean, it seems like you guys have really struck a chord with a lot of people. You've used the podcast to grow. As you kind of have an outlook here at the prospectus for the future, outside of continuing to create amazing, innovative products, are there any growth channels that you're evaluating, that you're excited about, that you think might potentially be a good fit for you guys moving forward?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're really looking at is the unconventional fitness space, and not only just selling the products, but providing places for people to train and really creating a movement similar to what CrossFit is doing, with different movements, unconventional training, lower risk of injury, but still that kind of tribal competitive community that they built. Less culty maybe, but they do a lot of things well. But I think there's some take a lot of what they're doing well and provide another opportunity. So, we're looking to be another major name in that space, and, a place to go who like that kind of put your stats up on the board, everybody working together kind of mentality, but without trips to the doctor, hopefully.
Yeah, man, that's super compelling and cool. And, I did take a look on the website and see like some of the things like the steel clubs that you mentioned and all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm really excited to see where that goes. So tell me, man, there's a lot of people that are probably listening to this and thinking, wow, like this is a really compelling way to think about creating and selling a physical product. What advice would you give to these people who are potentially interested in exploring this route?
Well, I think I think there's a couple things to think about, and that's probably wisdom you've heard in many places. About something that you yourself would use every day, use really frequently. Not that you would use but that you would actually go out and buy and use. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And if you create something like that, I think that's really crucial, because if you're not going to be that passionate about it yourself, I think you're going to have a hard time selling it, not only to investors, but to other people. So I think that's the first step. And then, the next step, I think really trying to figure out how you're going to get this product out. Because I've had other pretty good product ideas and things, but finding that person like Joe Rogan, or finding, whatever channel that you have that you really think you can reach an audience with, I think that's probably the next concern. So find something you love and then figure out how you're going to get it out. Because these things just don't, regular traditional advertising models, the margins are slim. Maybe you can get the leverage right and you can get something to work. Maybe you can't. Ally that can constantly build that critical mass, I think is really invaluable. And if not, looking at the podcast advertising model, if I had to start with no contacts, that's the way I would go. It's just, finding small podcasts and working out small deals. Podcasts that don't even have advertisers on there yet. Being like, hey, I'll be your first advertiser. I'll give you $50. And a lot of these podcasters will be pumped just to have an advertiser, because it makes them feel like a legit podcast, So really going deep into that channel, because they're going to have 50, 100, 500, 1,000, 10,000, whatever that number is, really loyal fans. Sure, it may not be Joe Rogan, 10 million downloads a month, but, starting that way, I think, is a great way to start.
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people haven't really explored, and is just going to become more prevalent and more effective with all of these people just coming out with podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess another question that I have is really along the lines of for people that just want to think about growth and think about maybe their startup has the first customer, they have 10 customers. I mean, did you guys just do podcasts? Did you try a lot of different things? What's kind of your mindset?
We try everything. We did some print advertising. We did, traditional radio spots. We did some TV stuff. We did SEO work, paid SEO. We did pretty much everything across the board. And some things worked a little bit. Some things worked a lot. Things that tended to work a lot were for the podcast. But, obviously investing in natural SEO certainly is a very valuable investment, more so than just, throwing up some pay-per-click on Gmail. Another thing that worked really well for us is we did retargeting or remarketing through Google. So anytime anybody comes through our site, it tags them as someone who comes to our site, and then all the site partners that have ad spaces available for remarketing, they'll see on it over and over again. So that's really widened our net as far as people who've just come to maybe check it out. Then they're going to see on it popping up on all their favorite sites, and it's going to give them that repetition that might bring them back. So that's been really helpful as well. And then other than that, just treating your customers as good as possible.
Yeah, baby. What's the toughest part of the business been?
I think the toughest part of the business is waiting for the things, that are out of my control. And, so some of those things are those unforeseen lightning bolts that come through that you just can't expect. A shipment of products that comes where the packaging hasn't sealed properly, and you're like, oh shit, what the hell is this? How did this happen? And you learn these things. We're a young company. We're a couple years old. So dealing with those things that you haven't been able to properly plan for, that's challenging because you got to be flexible. And I think the key thing is just to be fully honest. And then there's other things out of our control too, like we're doing a lot of clinical trial results and testing, and you set up a good study and you try and design that correctly, but sometimes you get exactly what you're looking for, and sometimes there's some surprises in there as well, and you have to go back and figure out what you did, and it's an expensive and it's a long process, and so I guess I'd say it's just the learning curve of exploring these new avenues as a new company. But that's part of the fun of it. It's part of the challenge.
Yeah, man. If you knew exactly what to do at all moments, it probably wouldn't be any fun.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Sometimes I wish I knew exactly what to do. But yeah, it's all good. It's part of the process.
Cool, brother. So the last question that we always ask on Growth Hacker TV is, what is the best advice you have for a startup looking to grow? If you had to give just one piece of advice.
I think finding that kind of matron, would be it for me. That one ally that can really galvanize whatever it is. I think for me, cultivating that kind of relationship with whoever that is really, really helpful. And honestly, I wasn't on it. Me and Joe could start a comic book, or whatever it was. And if we were passionate about it and we loved it, I think that business would be successful, because other people would share our passion. So I think not only building your own audience, but finding somebody else who has an audience that you can kind of team up with. I think that's really the shortcut to success. There's other ways to do it, and if you can't, doesn't mean stop. But if you can find that key ally and be generous, cut them in with the piece that matters for both of you, and then you'll end up a much bigger piece of the pie way faster. Because I feel like that was a big shortcut, like a big game of chutes and ladders, and we got to take one of those big shortcuts because of that relationship, and it's been a great ride since.
I love it, man. I think that's excellent advice. If people want to find out more about you, about On It, what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, we're strong in social media, so facebook.com/OnItLab is @OnIt. We got Instagram, we got everything. Myself, my handle is @WarriorPoetUS. So Facebook, Twitter, it's all consistent. You can keep up and check out what the happenings. And of course, the website is onnit.com.
Love it, man. Aubrey, thanks so much for your time today, man. It's been awesome.